Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Commissioner Rettig, thank you so much for being here today. I can't emphasize enough how much we appreciate the work that you have and the men and women of the IRS under incredibly difficult times. So, and you and I have talked about this before. I know you have about 80,000 plus people working, and they're working in the best interest of everybody in the United States. So I really appreciate that. Now, with having said that, I think you want to acknowledge that the IRS still faces several challenges this tax season, and I have concerns about how the agency plans to address them. Let me say to start out that I am most concerned about the current backlog of unprocessed tax returns from people who filed their taxes last year, and it's my understanding that there's 2.2 million individual returns and 4.4 million business returns received last year that are still waiting to start processing, and millions more remain in the processing pipeline due to the needed error resolutions and other issues. That means millions of taxpayers are still awaiting refunds for tax returns they may have filed as far back as March and April last year. Well, given that this backlog may not be resolved until well into this year, I'm concerned about the agency's ability to handle last year's backlog while also having to work through another difficult filing season this year. Now, I understand that you've announced an extension of the filing season by 30 days. I hope to hear more about your plan and how you use those 30 days to work through this backlog and get our tax system back on a normal schedule as soon as possible. I do worry that further delays could lead to a backlog at the end of this year and turn this into a vicious cycle that we will never get out of. Now, whenever we have an IRS-related hearing, we're always told that the IRS needs additional funding. And it's true that Congress has added to the agency's responsibility over the last year with bipartisan COVID relief bills, and now the Democrats' partisan $1.9 trillion bill that has very little to do with COVID. In fact, only 9 cents of every dollar is actually going to COVID relief. So you've got to scratch your head and wonder, how do you come up with that formula? But that's the world we live in. It is worth acknowledging where things stand with the IRS funding. The IRS budget was increased $400 million for fiscal year 2021. And in the last year, the IRS has received an additional $3.1 billion in appropriations through the COVID relief bills and the Democrats' partisan bill. Now, I know every agency would like as much funding as they can get. I understand that. But it's also clear to me that at this stage, the challenges the IRS faces right now will not be solved with just more money. There's also a few other issues I'd like to discuss. The first is customer services. One of the main goals of the Taxpayer First Act was to improve IRS's customer service. Unfortunately, I've heard from many constituents that the phone lines at the IRS are jammed up. And I would like to say, for most of us that serve in Congress right now, our offices in our home districts have become an extension of the IRS as we receive hundreds and thousands of phone calls from people trying to work through the different packages that are available to them. Now, when you talk about customer service, I offered an amendment during the markup of the last COVID package. And last year, the IRS was overwhelmed with phone calls about economic impact payment issues. And while we hope some of those issues have been cleared up, we can expect that taxpayers will still have significant customer service needs at the IRS at the end of this year. My amendment would have required the IRS to establish a dedicated customer service program to receive claims of missing or incorrect payments and to conduct casework until those claims are resolved. It may also be necessary to extend this program to 2019 refunds that taxpayers are still waiting on through no fault of their own. This would also ease the flood of calls that are coming to our offices about EIPs. I'd like to note that at the markup, Chairman Neal agreed to work with me on a much-needed bill focused on customer service. So I'd like to discuss some of your ideas to improve customer service experience for taxpayers and the IRS employees. I know that is a goal of yours since you first came on board. You have always talked about working with your staff to serve the needs of the American people. So I want to commend you for that and all members of your staff. They're great. Lastly, I have concerns about the employee retention tax credit and whether money is actually reaching the business owners it was intended to help. It is my understanding that millions of business owners, like Mario's Pizza in my district, filed the forms required for this credit, and they are still waiting for their refunds. So some of these forms date back to April of 2020. These folks can't wait that long, and Congress shouldn't intend for them to wait that long. But I want to tell you, the way you all have been able to work from home and do the things you're doing without all the things you'd have to do when you're in the office, I don't know how you've done it all. I really don't. And I know we have questions about it, and we want to know what we can do to help our constituents, but it really is a problem. Just the immensity of what we're trying to do. And I would like to point out to everyone, there's not another country in the entire world that could do what America has done during this pandemic. It is incredible. While we find fault with a lot of things, I don't know that anybody could say, I think they're doing it better here or they're doing it better there. The job that we've done has been incredible. I wish we would have done the last bill in a more bipartisan way, but for some reason, we just couldn't get there. I would have loved to see us get there, but we just weren't asked to participate. So, look, we have a lot to go over today. I personally, and the chairman and I get along everything as long as we're outside of Congress. I don't know that looking at the 45th President of the United States tax returns are really critical during a pandemic and all the other things that we have going on. Loss of life, loss of businesses, just total confusion and anger throughout the country. I think I would rather work on something that was productive and something that told the American people, we're going to stop all this crazy stuff you hear. I tell people, turn off the news. Don't watch it. Don't worry about the ping pong match that's taking place or the tennis match. Why don't you look at whoever it is that represents you and understand that each of us represents almost, well, it was over 700,000 people. I don't know how those people are registered or how they vote, but I know we represent them here in the Congress, and I think we could spend our time much better on what actually addresses the problems and get the hell away from this political situation where we have to bash. We can't do anything forward. I want to see more progressive things moving forward, not progressive in the way some people think, but progressive in the way we actually help the American people. This committee's responsibility is oversight, and I've always thought of us, and when Mr. Lewis was here, we're the strongest advocates for the American people when it comes to their taxes. So I think that's the goal we should have, and that's the way we should move forward. And I'm looking forward to hearing from you today, but again, I want to thank you and all of the people that you work with every day. I know how you treat them. You are a great leader. Thank you so much, and I yield back.